My name is Jamie.
My name is Sarah.
Today we're going to talk to you guys about why we are selling some of our rental properties.
We've been watching too many Canadian YouTubers.
About. So Sarah's been cutting my hair ever since COVID started, and so far it's gone pretty well, but we'll see how this time goes. Yeah, it saves me about $25 every time, so worth it. Why are you laughing? Sound like an evil laugh.
So this year, I think everyone has learned that you have to be adaptable. There's things that can change in an instant. Like I had to learn how to cut hair all of a sudden. But we've also been looking over some of our rental numbers and seeing that some of our rentals are not making us the money that they should be. And so we're actually deciding to sell some of them. So we're going to show you guys some of those numbers downstairs and kind of what we're talking about and what has kind of led us to that decision. Oh my word, Jamie. No. Why are you doing that? That was really dumb. I hope you didn't do that to be funny.
No, it needs to be shorter.
Well, that's not how you do it. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's definitely not that. Is this the correct method, you think?
Teamwork makes the dream work. What do you think? Not bad. I think she did a pretty good job.
That's pretty good, but I don't want to do it again. So in 2014, we started buying duplexes in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is where we live. And we were able to get those for around $30,000 to $60,000 a piece, which is
very cheap.
Very cheap.
Very
it was
cheap.
Awesome.
And we loved it. We were able to get between $1,200 and $1,500 for the house each in rent, and that was amazing returns at the time. So and then the other benefit we got was appreciation. So within a few years, those property values doubled and tripled. So we were really doing really well, and so then something different started to happen.
So what happened is that we couldn't find properties for that cheap price anymore. So we were having to, if we wanted to buy a duplex, we were having to spend $150,000, that kind of cash, which was a lot different than a year or two previously. So Jamie started researching a town nearby called Muskegon. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so Muskegon is a town right on Lake Michigan, which if you're not familiar with the area, it's basically just like the ocean, but fresh water. So really beautiful area, and a coastal town with a lot of potential for tourism and things like that. And the homes there were still extremely cheap, even though the Grand Rapids values had skyrocketed. So our hope was that we could get in there before appreciation took over and make some good money that way as well.
Yeah, so we immediately started buying as much as we could over there. I think we ended up buying 7 or 8 properties in that $20,000 to $30,000 range. And we did that that was in 2018 we started doing that. But unfortunately, what ended up happening is what looked really good on paper did not pan out for us.
Yeah, in reality, the numbers we were projecting for profit were a lot lower than anticipated. And we were dealing with things remotely, so we weren't able to be up and in the town and knowing what was going on with our properties. And unfortunately, between poor management and poor tenants, we really just didn't make a whole lot of money from rent.
So I think sometimes with real estate, it can look like everyone's doing really great and it's going really well and you're making all this money, but we kind of want to show you that it doesn't always go perfectly, and sometimes you need to be adaptable and you need to kind of change up your plans.
Yeah, so our original plan was just to buy a bunch of properties up there and just cash flow a ton and make a ton of passive income while those values of those properties increased. But unfortunately, 2 years later, we didn't get nearly the appreciation we were hoping for, and the properties didn't really cash flow much at all because the quality of tenants and just the lack of opportunity in that area.
Yeah, there's a huge turnover rate of tenants, a lot of just lack of pay. They just wouldn't pay on time, if at all. Mm-hmm. A lot of destruction of property that we just weren't seeing in Grand Rapids, even in similar income areas.
Yeah, there's not a lot of economic opportunity up in Muskegon as far as jobs for people. So because of that, really the appreciation didn't happen because people weren't moving to the area. Yeah, and then just the tenant respect level and following through on their leases and things like that was really poor. So sometimes we'd only have a tenant in there for 3 months and then have to put in a bunch of money to get the unit rentable again. So let me show you our cash flow sheet just so you can see what we're kind of talking about. So I think this property that we're actually selling right now is the perfect example of why it's so important to buy the right property in the right location. This property was in Muskegon Heights, which is just right outside of Muskegon, and we bought it for $10,000, which is crazy. We bought a house for $10,000, and the rent on it was supposed to be $525 a month, which that means within 2 years you can have the property paid for, free and clear. So
a common rule of thumb in real estate investing is that 50% of your income will actually go to expenses.
It's called the 50% rule.
Yes. So if you make $10,000, you can expect about $5,000 that year to go towards expenses, but that includes your
taxes,
insurance,
maintenance, vacancy, that kind
everything.
of encloses everything. So that's kind of what we assumed would happen with these Muskegon properties as well when we bought them. So if there was a property you were making, $6,000 a year on rent, you would hope to be able to keep $3,000 of that. But we're going to show you on the spreadsheet why that is not the case. If you look at our cash flow sheet, the tenant actually, for the most part, kinda paid their rent. So the total amount of rent that we got over the 12-month period for that property was $4,752. Which is less than what we should have gotten. I think if let's see, what is 525? Do you know what this?
No.
Let me just figure it out here. Take my calculator out. So we should have gotten $6,300 in rent. We only got $4,752. But still, most people would think, oh, you got almost $5,000 in rent. That's a great year for a house you only paid $10,000 for. But where the trouble you run into with these cheap properties is if you scroll down to the expenses, we had $3,964 of expenses on that property.
That was after fixing it up, right?
Yeah, so this property was totally fixed up, ready to go when the tenant moved in, but there was just random things. If you look, there was almost $1,200 of maintenance / repair. So I know once we got a call for bed bugs, which we had to take care of, unfortunately. So that I think was included in that, and just a few other random things that you wouldn't even think of happening. But because of that total expenses being almost $4,000, our net operating income was $787
for the whole year.
For the whole year. So that's owning this property. But wait, it's worse because we have to pay for taxes and insurance still. So we're actually in the hole on that property for the year. Definitely not something you want to hold on to, right, if you're losing money and having to deal with all those headaches.
Yeah. And this was happening over and over again in almost every single one of our properties in Muskegon. It wasn't just this one. Mm-hmm. And this is something that very rarely is happening to us in Grand Rapids.
It looks like we're going to end up being probably about break even on these properties after we sell them. So that appreciation is going to cover some of those rental losses on this particular property, but we're probably going to end up breaking even, which not really worth the headache if you ask me.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it was kind of like a forced savings for the past 2 years. We'll get all this money back, but we didn't necessarily grow it like we were hoping.
What we learned is that these really cheap properties that have low rental values, your expenditures are still going to be the same, or if not worse, on those properties. So, for example, if you have to put in a new toilet and a plumber comes, it ends up being a $300 or $400 bill for you. That's almost a whole month's rent if you're only getting $500 a month in rent. And if you were to have a property, you're getting $1,200 a month or $1,500 a month in rent for, that toilet isn't going to hurt your profits quite as much. So your expenses are going to be the same on a high-priced property as they are a low-priced property, because the materials and labor of your contractors are still the same, but you're getting less in rent, so you're ending up your cash flow and your returns are going to be a lot less.
So we ended up listing all of our Muskegon properties, and we have sold 6 of them so far. The last 2, one of them's under contract, and then the other one is still listed. What we're gonna do with those last ones is hopefully take that cash and buy 1 duplex in Grand Rapids. So we're kind of just shifting that money back here. I think that's one thing that we all learned this year, is that things can go wrong really quickly. So it's good just to be adaptable and to be willing to change and to do what's best for you.
We don't really need to have a certain number of units to, reach our goals. It's not about a number of units. I think we were originally focused on that, and we're like, if we could just get 25 rental units, we'll be in such a great spot and it'll be awesome. But through this, we realized it's not about the number of units, it's about the quality of rental property that you have. So rental properties are one thing we don't really talk about a whole lot about on this channel, but it's actually really important to us. It's kind of part of our financial plan is to continue to buy as many rental properties as we can. We want to eventually have enough passive income to replace any income that we would need to support ourselves. And we'll talk about that in some future videos, but we really like talking about rental properties. So if you have any questions or comments for us, we'd love to hear them below.
So make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more.
What do you think about my haircut? It's pretty good.
I was a little concerned at first, but it's pretty good.
I think this is the best one yet.
Yeah.
So
I'm getting better.
Sarah may start a haircut business pretty soon.
Definitely.
Under the table. You gotta come to our basement and get your haircut. We'll see. Bye.
Bye.